The Bible was only intended for ancient audiences. A common misconception is that the Bible was written only for ancient people and has little relevance today. While it is true that the biblical texts were produced in specific historical, cultural, and linguistic contexts, this does not mean their meaning is locked in the past. The Bible addresses enduring human questions, identity, morality, suffering, power, justice, and hope that transcend time and place. Understanding the original context helps clarify meaning, but it does not cancel modern application. In fact, many biblical writers intentionally frame their messages to speak beyond their immediate audience, using stories, poetry, and teachings that invite reflection across generations. Treating the Bible as merely ancient literature often leads to dismissing its ethical and philosophical depth. The challenge is not whether the Bible can speak today, but whether readers are willing to engage it thoughtfully with both historical awareness and contemporary responsibility.
The Bible says, God helps those who help themselves. Many people assume this phrase comes directly from the Bible, but it does not appear anywhere in the biblical text. Instead, it reflects a cultural value that emphasizes self-reliance and personal effort. While the Bible does encourage wisdom, diligence, and responsibility, it consistently presents God as the primary source of help, especially when human ability falls short. Biblical stories repeatedly highlight dependence on God rather than self-sufficiency, showing divine intervention in moments of weakness, failure, and need. This misconception can subtly shift the focus from trust in God to trust in oneself, which alters the message of grace. When the phrase is treated as biblical, it can also lead to judging others for their struggles, implying they simply did not try hard enough. The Bible's emphasis is not on earning help, but on receiving it. The Bible is merely a book of rules. Another widespread misconception is that the Bible exists mainly to provide a list of rules to follow. While laws and commands are present, they are only one part of a much larger narrative. The Bible is primarily a collection of stories, poetry, letters, prayers, and teachings that reveal how humans relate to God and to one another. Rules are often embedded within these stories to show their purpose and limits, not to function as a standalone checklist. When the Bible is reduced to rules, it can feel rigid, moralistic, or oppressive, missing its deeper themes of transformation, mercy, and restoration. Many biblical instructions are responses to specific situations, meant to guide communities rather than control them. Understanding the Bible as a living story about relationship changes how its teachings are read and applied. The Bible was written by God Himself, word for word. Some believe the Bible was dictated directly by God, word for word, without human involvement. While the Bible is regarded as inspired, it was written through human authors with distinct personalities, languages, styles, and perspectives. These writers lived in different times and cultures, and their background shaped how they expressed ideas about God, history, and faith. This explains why the Bible contains diverse literary styles, such as poetry, legal codes, narratives, and personal letters. Treating the Bible as a single, uniform voice can lead to confusion or forced interpretations when texts differ in tone or emphasis. Recognizing the human element does not weaken the Bible's authority. Instead, it helps readers understand how divine messages were communicated through real people, addressing real situations. Inspiration involves partnership, not mechanical dictation.
The Bible teaches that faith and works are opposed. A common misunderstanding is that the Bible presents faith and good works as opposing ideas. This usually comes from reading certain passages in isolation rather than in conversation with the whole text. The Bible consistently portrays faith and action as connected, not contradictory. Faith is described as trust in God, while works are the outward expression of that trust in daily life. When biblical writers criticize works, they are often addressing empty rituals or actions performed without genuine belief. At the same time, the Bible repeatedly emphasizes justice, compassion, and obedience as natural outcomes of faith. Separating faith from action can reduce belief to mere intellectual agreement, while separating action from faith turns morality into performance. The biblical vision holds both together, showing that authentic faith is demonstrated through how people live, treat others, and respond to responsibility.
The Bible promises believers an easy, trouble-free life. Many people assume that following the Bible guarantees comfort, success, and protection from hardship.
This idea often develops from selective reading or oversimplified teaching. In reality, the Bible consistently presents suffering as a normal part of life, even for those who are faithful. Many central biblical figures experience loss, injustice, persecution, and failure despite their commitment to God. Rather than promising an absence of trouble, the Bible emphasizes endurance, hope, and meaning in the midst of difficulty. This misconception can be especially damaging because it leads people to feel abandoned or guilty when life becomes hard. Instead of offering escape from suffering, the Bible offers a framework for understanding it, responding to it, and finding purpose beyond immediate comfort. Faith is portrayed as resilience, not insulation from pain. All Christians interpret the Bible the same way. It is often assumed that Christians share a single, unified interpretation of the Bible, but this has never been the case. From the earliest centuries, believers have disagreed on theology, ethics, worship, and how specific passages should be understood. Differences arise from language translation, cultural background, historical context, and interpretive approach. Some readers emphasize tradition, others focus on personal reading, and still others rely on scholarly analysis. These differences have shaped denominations, movements, and debates throughout history. Treating Christianity as a monolithic belief system ignores this complexity and can oversimplify disagreements. It can also create unrealistic expectations, leading people to assume that differing interpretations signal dishonesty or bad faith. The Bible itself reflects diverse voices in conversation, suggesting that interpretation is part of an ongoing, thoughtful engagement, rather than a single fixed conclusion. The Bible contradicts itself. One of the most common accusations against the Bible is that it is full of contradictions. This claim often arises from reading passages without considering genre, context, or purpose. The Bible is a collection of writings produced over centuries by different authors, addressing different audiences and situations. Because of this, it contains multiple perspectives rather than a single simplified voice. Some passages emphasize justice, others mercy. Some focus on law, others on grace. These tensions are often intentional and invite reflection rather than cancellation. Apparent contradictions frequently dissolve when historical background, literary style, or audience is taken into account. Treating the Bible like a modern technical manual can create confusion because it was never meant to function that way. Complexity does not equal error. It reflects the Bible's attempt to address real human experience from multiple angles. The Bible condemns scientific inquiry. Some claim that the Bible is hostile to science and discourages curiosity about the natural world. This misconception usually comes from framing faith and science as opposing forces. In reality, the Bible does not attempt to function as a scientific textbook, nor does it forbid investigation or discovery. Many biblical texts express wonder at nature and encourage observation, reflection, and wisdom. Historically, numerous early scientists were motivated by their belief that studying the universe was a way to understand order and meaning. Conflict often arises when scientific findings are forced into modern debates the biblical authors were never addressing. The Bible's concern is primarily theological and moral, not explanatory in a scientific sense. Treating it as anti-science misrepresents its purpose and creates a false divide between faith and inquiry, when both can coexist without canceling each other. The New Testament invalidates the Old Testament. A frequent misunderstanding is that the New Testament replaces or cancels the Old Testament entirely. While the two sections differ in style, audience, and emphasis, the New Testament consistently builds upon the foundation of the Old Testament rather than rejecting it. Many ideas, themes, and symbols in the New Testament only make sense when read in light of earlier texts. Early Christian writers regularly quoted and relied on the Old Testament to explain their beliefs. This misconception often arises from assuming that new automatically means better or irrelevant. Instead, the Bible presents a developing story, not a disconnected one. Ignoring the Old Testament can flatten the meaning of the New Testament and remove historical depth. The relationship between the two is one of continuity and reinterpretation, not erasure. The Bible is anti-women, The idea that the Bible is inherently anti-women often comes from selective readings that ignore historical context and the roles women play throughout the text. The Bible was written in patriarchal societies, which shaped its language and social structures, but this does not mean it universally devalues women. Many biblical narratives highlight women as leaders, prophets, judges, and key agents of change. Some passages reflect cultural limitations of their time rather than timeless prescriptions. When these distinctions are ignored, the Bible can appear more restrictive than it is. This misconception can also result from reading ancient texts through modern expectations without considering historical realities. A careful reading shows both tension and progress within the Bible's treatment of women, revealing voices that challenge norms rather than simply reinforce them.
The Bible teaches that suffering is always punishment from God. A common belief is that suffering is always a direct result of personal sin or divine punishment. While some biblical texts connect consequences to actions, the Bible repeatedly challenges the idea that all suffering is deserved. Several narratives explicitly reject this assumption, showing innocent people who experience hardship for reasons unrelated to wrongdoing. The Bible often presents suffering as complex, shaped by injustice, human choices, and broken systems rather than simple cause and effect. This misconception can be harmful because it encourages blame instead of compassion and discourages honest struggle. When suffering is automatically labeled as punishment, it can silence grief and isolate those in pain. Rather than offering easy explanations, the Bible invites reflection, lament, and endurance. It portrays God as present within suffering, not as the automatic source of it. The Bible forbids questioning or doubt? Many assume the Bible demands unquestioning acceptance and condemns doubt as weakness. In reality, the Bible contains numerous examples of people who question, wrestle, and even argue while remaining within a faithful relationship. Laments, debates, and honest complaints appear throughout its pages, showing that doubt is treated as part of engagement rather than rebellion. This misconception often comes from confusing faith with certainty, when the Bible presents faith more as trust amid uncertainty. Suppressing questions can lead to shallow belief and fear of honest reflection. The Bible repeatedly portrays questioning as a pathway to deeper understanding, not a threat to belief. When doubt is ignored or punished, it distorts the biblical picture of faith as dynamic and relational. The text invites inquiry, reflection, and growth, rather than passive acceptance. The Bible teaches blind obedience to authority. Some believe the Bible promotes unquestioning obedience to leaders and institutions. While the Bible does address authority, it does not present obedience as automatic or absolute. Many biblical stories include figures who challenge kings, religious leaders, and social systems when they act unjustly. Prophets regularly confront those in power, often at great personal risk. This shows that authority is portrayed as accountable, not infallible. Blind obedience contradicts the Bible's repeated emphasis on justice, conscience, and moral responsibility. When obedience is detached from ethical evaluation, it can be used to justify abuse or silence dissent. The Bible frames obedience within a larger moral vision where loyalty to God and concern for others take priority over human commands. Authority is tested by its alignment with justice, not accepted without question.
The Bible promotes slavery? The presence of slavery in the Bible often leads to the claim that it endorses the practice. This misunderstanding comes from reading ancient texts without accounting for historical context. Slavery in the biblical world differed significantly from modern racialized chattel slavery, though it was still a harsh and unequal system. The Bible addresses slavery as a social reality, rather than as an ideal to be promoted. Many passages seek to regulate and limit harm within existing structures, rather than offering immediate abolition. At the same time, broader biblical themes emphasize human dignity, freedom, and equality, which later movements drew upon to challenge slavery itself. Reading these texts without context can make the Bible appear complicit in injustice, when it is often engaging imperfect systems while pointing beyond them. The Bible reflects a world in tension, not a final moral endorsement.
The Bible teaches hatred and violence. The Bible is sometimes portrayed as a book that promotes hatred and violence because it contains accounts of war, judgment, and conflict. These passages can be disturbing when read without context, but they are largely descriptive rather than prescriptive. The Bible records violence as part of human history, often exposing its consequences rather than celebrating it. Many texts wrestle openly with brutality, injustice, and moral failure instead of endorsing them. This misconception often arises from treating every narrative as a command rather than as part of a larger story about human brokenness. The Bible also contains strong counter-themes that emphasize compassion, restraint, and reconciliation. Ignoring this tension can lead to shallow readings that miss the Bible's moral struggle. Rather than glorifying violence, the text frequently questions it and points toward a different vision of justice.
If you enjoyed this video about common Bible misconceptions, be sure to check out this video next.